What's going on, guys? Welcome back to United View. Hope everyone is doing very well, having a good Wednesday evening, and there is still plenty to get into in the world of Manchester United. The biggest story, of course, means the foundations of Manchester United themselves. The sheer structure of the club is currently in flux because yesterday the big bombshell news that the Glazer family, yes, the owners of Manchester United, were, quote, announcing the process to explore strategic alternatives to enhance the club's growth. Now, that's very businessese, of course, isn't it? What it really means is for the first time since purchasing the club 17 years ago, the club is officially, effectively up for sale, with several interested parties interested in purchasing Manchester United from the Glazers in what could possibly and will most likely be a world record fee for a football club. This is a massive story, a developing story, certainly a story that is going to shape and change the future of Manchester United as we know it, of course, after a decade of not winning a Premier League title, after 17 years of mismanagement from the Glazer family, after years and years of taking money out of the club when they should have been putting it in. We might finally be on the precipice of having new ownership, change at Manchester United, and as I mentioned, the foundations of Manchester United being rocked with this huge statement yesterday from the ownership announcing that the club was effectively for sale. Now, since then, in the last 24 hours, there have been a lot of developments, certainly in terms of reporting, speculation about prospective buyers who could possibly put in a bid to purchase Manchester United from the Glazer family. There's also been some new details and some new information about how they came to this decision, how this process came about, how long it took. Did it have anything to do with the Cristiano Ronaldo interview? It didn't, by the way. That kind of stuff has come out in the last 24 hours. So let's get into it. What we're going to do in this video, this is going to be quite fun actually. We're going to give you the latest news as to the thought process of the Glazer family, the latest news about the possible sale of Manchester United, what that statement truly meant yesterday, the valuation, the going price, the going fee of what it would cost to purchase Manchester United. Plus, we're also going to talk about potential purchasers of Manchester United, who could be buying the club. There are several parties that have already been linked to purchasing United. And some are what names you would expect. Some names are certainly a bit surprising. Some names have been linked to Manchester United in the past. Some names seem somewhat fantastical, but certainly there's lots of information here. So let's get straight into it. So this first bit comes from the Mirror. Now, this comes from the actual price itself. The Glazers, reportedly, the Glazer family are demanding reportedly a world record fee for Manchester United, wanting as much as £8 billion, dwarfing the £4 billion fee agreed for NFL team the Denver Broncos, which was a world record at the time for a sports franchise. Now, the reason reportedly why the Glazers would be looking for that amount of money is based on a plethora of factors. First of all, Manchester United is one of, if not the best known and well regarded, and certainly has the biggest reach of any sporting brand in the world. The Denver Broncos are a big NFL side, but I think from the Glazer perspective, they would say, well, the Denver Broncos are in the NFL, but they're not as big as Manchester United. If you come over here to the UK, for example, and this isn't me being, smug or anything like that or having bias, but if you come over to the UK and you could ask people, can you name the NFL team that's in Denver? People would be like, no. I mean, there'll be NFL fans, there'll be some people that might know, but there'll be a lot of people that don't. You go over to the US and you ask a lot of people to name a Premier League side or name a football side, not even a Premier League side, name a football side. A lot of the first answers will be Manchester United. And that just goes to show the value, the brand awareness that Manchester United generates. There was the friendly that they had with Real Madrid. Was it back in 2014? I believe it was in America. And it was like a world record attendance for a football match. And it was against Real Madrid. It was that one where I think it was Marca or one Spanish newspaper then tried to sort of doctor the front page of the paper by making the crowd appear like they were wearing white shirts, where in reality the majority of them were wearing red shirts. And again, that's because the brand awareness and the reach of Manchester United is so vast. Now, when it comes to the decision and how they got to this decision to finally put the club up for sale or certainly seek outside investment opportunities when it pertains to Manchester United, the Glazer family are all said to be united in their desire to sell. Once again, coming from the Mirror, co-chairman Joel Glazer is said to have had doubts about his decision to relinquish control, though. It is understood that he has been persuaded by his siblings and co-board members that the timing is right to sell and ensure they maximize their profit. Now, this also isn't the first time we've heard this. Back in the summer, if you recall, there was a discussion point whereby They spoke about how several members of the Glazer family wanted to sell. Several members of the Glazer family had basically had enough with Manchester United. They'd had enough with the scrutiny. They'd had enough with the fan protest. They'd had enough with being persona non grata in Manchester, and that bleeding out to their other outside projects such as hotels, such as NFL teams in the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, etc. And they just basically had enough of it. And it was really only Joel Glazer and perhaps Avram Glazer that was really, no, we should still stay. We should still hold on to this asset. And that's what it is to them, an asset. We should still hold on to this. We should still have it in our portfolio. And it would appear now, if reports are believed to be accurate here, that Joel Glazer has been persuaded to relinquish control and officially put the club up for sale, because it was reported yesterday by Sky News, and they were the first people to break the story that the Glazers were going to be releasing this statement, were going to be putting the club up for sale. And the thought process at the time was that we are entering this phase when it comes to sports franchises where they are so valuable and worth such an astronomical amount of money that they might be hitting the peak in terms of valuation. Of course, inflation is worldwide at the moment. It's not just on the shelves at Tesco, it's in everything. And the thought process is that with the tough economic climate that's on the horizon and is already hitting people around the world, perhaps in 12 months' time or 18 months' time, a club like Manchester United might not be as valuable as they are right now. Plus, after another year, after another 2 years of mismanagement, which Manchester United is clearly being financially mismanaged, clearly being mismanaged when it comes to an executive level and on the pitch as well. And that's led to a decade without a Premier League title. That's led to 5 years without a trophy whatsoever. Who's to say that in 2 years' time, Manchester United will be as valuable as they are right now? And the Glazers, I've spoken about this too previously, they're at a crossroad at this point. And the crossroads is that Manchester United requires investment today, right now. No longer can they just self-sustain and operate as they've been operating for the past decade. And that's essentially been that the Glazers don't put any of their own money in. They haven't actually invested any money into the club since, I think it's 2011, something like that. So they haven't put any money in over a decade. And because of the size of the club, and again, this is the point, this is why Manchester United is such a valuable asset. Because of the size of the club, because of how much money it generates and the revenue streams that United have, they can still be self-sufficient. They can still generate enough money, enough profit to be able to have summer transfer windows like we just had, where we spent £200 million and none of it was a Glazer penny. So, but that can only happen for a period of time. And now we're at the point whereby the stadium needs redevelopment. And I say redevelopment somewhat lightly because actually in reality, probably need a new stadium. The stadium might need to be knocked down and built back up again. We know the training ground facilities aren't up to scratch anymore. We've fallen behind. You look around the country and around the world, there are so many more stadiums that are more modern and bigger and more viable for outside interests as well than Old Trafford is at the moment. They've got screens, they've got Wi-Fi's, they've got a multi-function functionality about them, whereby you look at the Bernabeu with Real Madrid, with the development that's going on there. They can shift the pitch off and turn it into something else. The Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, they've got an exclusive deal with the NFL that they play the NFL games over there as well. There are multiple stadiums, as I mentioned, that are being built or repurposed or modernised, and Old Trafford is miles behind that. Cristiano Ronaldo, in his interview, did touch on the shoddy facilities at Carrington. The understanding is they are being redeveloped now, but they're still way behind some of the most modern training grounds in the country. Training grounds like Tottenham Hotspur, who got a new one, for example. Facilities such as, I hear about Brighton, got a fantastic training ground as well. And all these other clubs. We know Manchester City, their investment and their development with their owners over the past decade or so too. So, because of that, the Glazers are at a precipice where basically it's put up or shut up. If they were to stay in charge to ensure that Manchester United doesn't continue to go backward, and I say backward at a really alarming rate, they would have to put their hands in their pockets. And unfortunately for them, and fortunately for fans, I would say, they don't have the money to put into the club anymore. Therefore, they have to sell now to make money, to make a profit. Otherwise, the club's not going to be as valuable and they'd have to invest their money. That's the issue that they have at the moment. So, because of that, Joel Glazer has been convinced now is the right time to sell the club. Now, it's been reported by Mike Keegan from the Daily Mail that those interested, and we are going to get onto these interested parties shortly, those interested in United would need to take into account the huge cost of the Old Trafford redevelopment that I touched on a second ago. It's a stadium that not just it needs modernization, doesn't just need, we're going to add some more seats. Most likely, it might have to be knocked down and built back up again, or it might have to be moved to a site nearby or something like that, because they've kind of run out of space and they've run out of how much redevelopment they can do on that stadium. Reportedly, that price of redevelopment of Old Trafford could exceed £2 billion. So in addition to the 8 billion that certainly the Glazers are looking for, that world record fee amount, we could be looking at an extra 2 billion on top of that. So this whole thing could be costing a potential party 10 billion. I don't know if that 2 billion is going to be included. I would suggest not, because why would you give an extra, for instance, if you're purchasing the club for 8 billion, why would 2 of that billion be like, that's going to go towards the stadium? But you've given the money to the Glazers anyway. So that makes no sense to me. So if the Glazers want 8 million for it, and that includes purchasing the club plus wiping the debt off their name, that extra 2 billion they would have to go on the stadium. So you're looking at a total package here of astronomical fees, world record fees. Again, 8 billion, 10 million, possibly even more than that. And that itself might rule out some candidates, that might rule out some parties. I look to Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who we are going to touch on before. He's Britain's wealthiest man, but can he afford an asset transfer or a purchase of a company? And that's what United is, a company that's 10 billion. He might have to leverage, loans from banks, etc. And that's when we get into murky waters that we've got into before. So that's certainly interesting. Now, of course, this comes at the same time that another top six club in Liverpool is also been put up for sale for their owner, FSG. And that certainly is an unprecedented moment too. We are now at a period of time where two top six clubs, arguably the two biggest clubs in English football, certainly historically, certainly in terms of possibly reach around the world, that they're both up for sale. They're both at a period of time where both of their American owners are suggesting it might be time to get out and cash in our chips and let someone else come in and take these clubs over, because now is the best time in terms of value for money, and we've got to invest money into the club, money that we necessarily don't have. Now, there has been some theory, and I do think there is some credibility to this, that possibly the process of the Glazers putting United up for sale, going public rather, with their intention to sell Manchester United, may have been sped up by the announcement that FSG were looking to sell Liverpool, because their concern might have been one of those potential purchasers of Liverpool might be someone that can afford a purchase of Manchester United, and we don't want to miss out on that money. According to Mike Keegan of the Daily Mail, Manchester United are confident they can snatch potential buyers from Liverpool in what is expected to become a war for the highest bidder. Those closely involved with the process feel United represent a much more appealing prospect thanks to a superior global reach. And myself and Mina kind of spoke about this morning on the Morning View. Be sure to check it out. That I think that you can be confident, and of course we're all biased here. If you're a United fan watching this, and most likely most of you are, if you're a United fan, you should be confident that if it's going to become a bidding war, whereby it becomes a binary choice that a wealthy person, a state, if it's going to be a state funded or a state operated bid, or if it's going to be a consortium, if they had to have a choice between Liverpool and Manchester United, in terms of value for money, they're better off coming to Manchester United. Now, Liverpool fans and other football fans might say, well, in terms of, recently, Liverpool, they've been dominating Manchester United, and Liverpool have, won Champions Leagues, they've won Premier Leagues, they've won trophies, they've got one of the best managers in the world in Jurgen Klopp, and all of that information is perfectly, completely accurate. Of course it is. But at the same time, in terms of the global reach, in terms of the amount of money that they generate, Liverpool doesn't even come close to Manchester United. And once again, the infrastructure's already there. I think any prospective buyer would look at Manchester United and say, well, if they're even operated half decently, they'll win trophies most likely, and also the infrastructure and the reach and the brand recognition is all there, and it goes back to value for money. The potential of a club like Manchester United is far superior in all assets and facets than a club like Liverpool. So let's get into these potential buyers, because that's probably what you really want to hear from me. What about these potential buyers? What have we heard? What has been reported today? Well, Let's start off with possibly a state option here. So this comes from Tyrone Marshall for the Manchester Evening News. He has written that a Middle Eastern investment fund like Dubai bidding for Manchester United is a possibility. United has always been the biggest attraction for states looking to own clubs. However, those options have limited somewhat in recent years. Of course, Qatar, they own PSG. Abu Dhabi, they own Manchester City. Saudi Arabia, although not officially, certainly Saudi Arabia have got ownership of Newcastle United now too. But the investment fund in Dubai has been linked with interest before. Even if you do a quick Google search, you will see at several points over the past 15 or so years, Dubai has been linked several times to Manchester United. Every single time there's a discussion point about Manchester United possibly being put up for sale, or the owners thinking about selling, or protests forcing the owners, forcing the issue out into the media. Dubai's always there, or certainly a state-funded option like Dubai is always there, and that certainly is a possibility. Furthermore, the Times, and they've been very much spot on when it comes to their reporting on the financial side of this, all the way going back to the summer, and even when the early stages of the rumblings of the Glazers possibly wanting to sell, they're reporting that the banks, who are really the ones who are brokering these deals for Manchester United, of course, as I mentioned, the Rain Group is going to be responsible for advising, being a financial advisor to the Glazers during this process. The Rain Group was the same group, that rhymes, the Rain Group was the same group that helped facilitate the purchase of Chelsea to Todd Bowley's consortium from Roman Abramovich earlier this year as well. So certainly they've got experience about doing these big multi-billion-pound transactions. And these banks also anticipate approaches from the Middle East, in particular from Dubai. So keep an eye out for that Dubai option. Of course, as I mentioned, you do then get into the political aspect of things. Clearly, they would be, I would think, the option that has the most money. But for me, and as I spoke about this morning with Mina, it's not necessarily just about money when it comes to this ownership. Of course, you can look at clubs like City and clubs like PSG and clubs like Newcastle and think, oh, wouldn't it be great to have all of that money? But ultimately, money is worthless if the club is not operated properly. And that's what it's about. It's about the club being operated properly. It's about whatever owner it be, whether whatever their geographic location, in my opinion, understanding the ethos and the principles of Manchester United and correcting a lot of wrongs that have been written by the Glazers over the year. Of course, Manchester United fans want success, but also they want investment in the local community. They want investment in the stadium. They want investment in the training ground. They want extra investment in the academy. They want to be proud of the club. Once again, that's really ultimately what it's about. And of course, that is the option, as mentioned, Dubai, that's probably got the most money. And as this price point gets bigger, and I think this is the key thing too, as this price point gets bigger with figures such as 8 billion, 10 billion, possibly even more. Again, we're talking about world record amounts. One individual entity that might be able to afford that is someone like Dubai, who would have no issue clearly being able to afford a 2 billion renovation of Old Trafford. With other parties involved here, that might be slightly more difficult, and again, that might be more difficult to manage. And also, look, as time goes on, possibly to compete in terms of spending power with Manchester City and other people, it might get to a point where it needs to be state funded. But again, for me, it's not about money; it's about who has the best interests of the club. And again, that's something to be considered for every single individual, certainly. Now, speaking of the Times and continuing with this point about potential purchases and potential people that could be interested in buying United, this has kind of come out of nowhere. So the Times is also reporting that one well-placed source suggested that tech and social media giants such as Amazon and Facebook could be among those interested in looking at United because of their expertise. It continues saying that Manchester United claim to have 1.1 billion global followers, and while that figure has been disputed, it is widely recognized within the industry that they have failed to effectively tap into their vast legions of supporters, basically saying that while the number is disputed, actually there could be, and most likely is, way more followers of Manchester United or supporters than that in the world, and that may appeal to a tech company like Amazon and Facebook. I think these two options, in my opinion, are really, really unlikely for several reasons. One, a company like Amazon, they are traditionally more interested in rights. So rights of, in terms of They are trying to tap into the sporting field, but you've seen them recently have Premier League games on Amazon Prime. We've seen them in America start to air NFL games. And I think moving forward, they're going to be looking into more expanding their television side of things. Of course, we know Amazon Prime TV series, but certainly live sporting rights, they're looking more into doing that. It would be a massive conflict of interest for them to have Premier League rights to air Premier League games, but also Jeff Bezos own Manchester United. I recall when Manchester United was going to be taken over. What year was it? You can let me know in the comment section below if I'm wrong on this one. I think early 2000s, late 1990s, it might around that period of time, where Rupert Murdoch was linked to purchasing Manchester United. However, Sky Sports, of course, had the Premier League rights. It was deemed a conflict of interest. So I think it's really unlikely someone like Amazon could purchase United. Similarly with Facebook, or as it's known now, Meta, Mark Zuckerberg's company, I think that's really unlikely. They've also lost a ton of money this year as trying to, and I'm not an expert in this, it must be said, but whilst trying to expand the metaverse, it's been seen that they've lost a lot of money. And I just can't see them or why it would particularly benefit them to get involved in the sporting world and try and own a sporting franchise and a sporting team. They've got some of the biggest businesses in the world. That would be somewhat of an unprecedented step. And I feel like that's just that's just a loose link saying, well, Manchester United is one of the most followed clubs in the world and it's got some of the most fans, so Amazon would be interested or Facebook would be interested. But again, I just don't see the link there. I don't see the link. And that would go back to, again, I'd have major reservations about that because are they going to run the club in the best way possible? Do they care about Manchester United being successful, or do they care about Manchester United having a lot of followers, or Manchester United being well known around the world, irrespective of what they're well known for? Like at the moment, they're well known for being a club that used to be good, but now longer don't win anything, and they just have a circus surrounding them. I would have concerns about that, but I think that's so far-fetched that I just think it's really, really unlikely we'd ever see Jeff Bezos or Mark Zuckerberg own Manchester United, to be honest with you. Now, in addition to that, prospective buyers also include, this comes from the Mirror once again, those who lost out to Todd Boehly in the battle to buy Chelsea, including US-based Harris Blitzer Sports Entertainment. And it must be said, and this is why I am confident about the club being purchased. I know there's a lot of discussion of, I'll wait until I see it. We've heard stuff before, and we've been teased before, we've been lied to before, but there's been nothing as public as this. There's been nothing as public as this by the Glazer family basically saying we're exploring opportunities which could include a sale. The Chelsea purchase earlier this year proved a lot of things, and I think it opened a lot of eyes. And I think this is also why clubs like Liverpool, Manchester United have been put up for sale. Is that one, these owners looked at Chelsea and said, that was a lot of money that they got purchased for. Our club, we feel our club's more valuable than them. We can make a lot more money than them. That's interesting. And two, it wasn't as if there was just one person. It wasn't just Todd Boehly that was interested in buying Chelsea. There were multiple parties. There were several rounds of bidders. And, like a political leadership contest, they were eliminated round by round by round by round by round. So I think all of these owners of these clubs not only looked at that's a lot of money that people were buying things for, but also there were several groups of people that for whatever reason weren't able to purchase the club or weren't selected as suitable to purchase the club. At the same time, you can't look at that Chelsea operation and how that transaction happened and think that that's typical, because it isn't. It's very atypical. That whole situation was somewhat unprecedented, whereby the owner of the club was politically sanctioned due to obviously other incidents going on around the world. And because of that, Chelsea had to change hands. Someone had to purchase Chelsea within a finite period of time, because if they didn't, they would no longer be able to exist. They wouldn't operate. The license to operate would be gone. So that happened much quicker than a typical takeover of a club. You look at Newcastle, that took a really long time. And this could take still a long period of time for United too. But certainly that process did prove that there are people out there who are willing to pay top money for a club. What you could argue in a pushback to those people that weren't able to purchase Chelsea is that United, as we spoke about earlier, is going to be and will cost far superior than Chelsea. It's going to be a world record amount. Again, we're talking about 8 billion, 10 billion, possibly even more than that. Can those consortiums afford that? Can they afford what they were willing to pay for Chelsea, but they're going to have to pay a lot more for United. So can they even afford that? Plus, Do you really want an owner, or do you really want a consortium that was deemed not suitable for Chelsea, but they're suitable for United? Shouldn't we want the best in class everywhere at the club? Not just the directors, not just on the pitch, not just in the academy, not just in the canteen. Shout out to the chef. Shouldn't we want the best in class in terms of ownership as well? Why weren't they deemed good enough to buy Chelsea? What was the difference between them and Todd Boehly? So that's a point too. And also, of course, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, who has been linked to Manchester United for months at this point. He is Britain's richest man. He's well known to be a lifelong Manchester United fan. He was one of those names, of course, that was linked to buy Chelsea, put in a really late bid to buy them, and it was too bid. It was past the cut-off deadline, and when asked, why did you put in that bid so late? He said, well, I just wanted to make sure that things were in order. If we really wanted to pursue this, if we really wanted to go after purchasing Chelsea, and we decided that we did, but it was too little too late. Now, he was asked in these interviews, of course, wasn't he? You're a United fan. Why are you trying to buy Chelsea? Why wouldn't you try and buy United? And he said, well, I love United, but the owners aren't the owners have said the club isn't for sale. When there was links to him purchasing the club earlier this year, when he came out, or certainly his PR people or his publicist came out and said he would want to buy United and he would want to take over the club. Ultimately, again, it was put out a few months later that the club isn't for sale. I've spoken to the owners. They're very nice people, but the club isn't for sale. Well, that's changed now. The circumstances have changed. It is now for sale. The club is for sale. Again, you would have to argue, can he afford it? Would he be able to afford it himself, or would he have to lead a consortium involved with other people? You could argue that he might be one of the better people because he's a lifelong fan of the club. He loves the club. He understands the ethos of the club, but he is also involved in other sporting franchises that maybe aren't doing amazingly well. He's with Nice. Obviously, he's a major sponsor, I believe, for Mercedes in F1 too. And he's got his fingers in a lot of pies, as it were. So maybe he might be the right option, but certainly I think there are also going to be other options that we haven't even really heard about. I think there will be these US consortiums that we have that have been speculated on. Kaveh Solokol tweeted last night for Sky Sports that the expectation is United might be sold to another US consortium, and that's got people worried too. Sometimes is it better the devil you know? What will that US consortium look like? Will they have United's best interest at hand? Todd Boehly purchased Chelsea, spent a lot of money. They're not doing too great this season, but at the same time, he does want to invest in the stadium. He does want to invest in the training ground, and he does want to win. And that's different from our owners because they could care less whether we win or not. It's just about them making money. So again, I think this is going to obviously be an ongoing thing. I think there are going to be parties that do enter the fray that we haven't heard about yet. And I do think these big hitters like Dubai and like Sir Jim Ratcliffe and others, I think are all going to be at play. Wouldn't say too much about Amazon or Facebook or anything like that. I think that's somewhat far-fetched. But again, some consortiums we haven't heard about, I think will be putting their names into the hat very, very soon. So there you go, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe. What would be your preferred bidder? What would be your preferred owner? How much do you think it is going to cost to purchase United? How long do you think this entire takeover process is going to take? Is it going to distract from what is still needed to be done this season? That's a push towards the top four. What are your thoughts on this developing situation? Let us know your thoughts in the comment section below. Be sure to smash a like on the like button. Be sure to subscribe bottom right hand corner. Remember, you can join the UV Members Club as well. Links in the video description. You get your badges, your emojis, and your exclusive members only content. I'm out of here. Hope you have a great Wednesday, and I'll speak to you again very soon. Peace.